Hi,
What's up,
everyone.
everybody? Woo!
Thank you so much for joining us. Happy Monday. It is Monday. I always have to check. We're so glad that you're here. I'm Amanda Reiman from Personal Plants and Sacred Garden.
And I'm Lisa Snyder, co-founder of Toketivity.
And we are excited that you're here to join us because we're so used to coming and talking about cannabis with this lovely group. And today we're shifting gears a little bit and we're talking about something that absolutely has applications in cannabis, but isn't cannabis specific, which is the world of cryptocurrency, the metaverse, NFTs, a lot of buzzwords and terminology that people have been throwing around. And so I want to get something really clear off the bat. One is that this is not financial advice. Neither Lisa nor I are professional financial advisors, nor do we wish to be. At least I do not wish to be one. And the second thing is that we're not coming at this topic from a pro or a con attitude. You know, people have a lot of feelings about something that's new, about something that isn't quite well understood, about something that's in popular culture a whole lot and is sensationalized. And we're not here to tell you how to feel about these topics. We're here because we believe that knowledge is power and that it is really important for folks to have a basic understanding of new technologies, new types of money, new opportunities that might be coming along, because we want you to be able to participate or not participate in them as you see fit. And we want that to come from you having your own knowledge about the topic and not having to rely on others. Right, Lisa?
That's right. Yes. So we both started at different places, and we're going to share a little bit about how we got started in like the crypto space, which we're still learning. It's an ever evolving thing out there in technology land, and it can be super overwhelming, especially if you don't identify as somebody who's super tech savvy. Somehow, some way, you made it into this event, or you're watching it later, so you did something right. But we're trying to break it down and to make it a little bit more chewable so that we can learn together. So I thought it would be a good idea if we started off with just talking a little bit about how did we get into Web 3.0, NFTs, crypto. Like, what was the original interest in getting into this? And maybe starting with Amanda, and then I'll share a little bit about myself.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. And I want to mention before we get into that a little bit about how this series is going to work. So, this is the first in a series. We're going to be doing this every month throughout the summer. And tonight is really our overview. So, we're going to be talking a little bit about basic definitions, basic things that you need to know. And the format of these little discussions is that the first half we'll spend diving into a topic. And then the second half, we're going to bring in an expert in the field who has a little bit to say about what we've been discussing and has some insight based on their own work. So tonight, we're very excited to have Dr. Tiffany Bowden to come in and talk about her foray into the tech world and the work that she's doing to bring inclusivity to the tech space. So that's going to be the topic tonight. And then in further shows, we're going to delve deeper into some of these topics. We're going to get really hands-on and show you step by step how to get involved and engaged in this space. One other thing I want to mention is that we hope to have time for Q&A at the end of each show. However, we have so much information to impart, and we know that there are so many questions that what you can do is if you have a question as we're going along, feel free to type it in the chat. If we don't get to it tonight, we'll likely answer it online before the next show, and we'll give you a shout out so that you know we answered your question. If you don't want us to give you a shout out, no problem. Just put anonymous next to your question and we'll make sure that we just answer the question online and don't mention you. So it's totally up to you. But again, this is supposed to be really interactive. So please drop those questions in the chat. All right. So why did I get involved in this? Well, I was a teenager when the internet was born. And I really remember that time. I remember that people really misunderstood what it was for. At the very beginnings, people really had no idea how to use the internet. I remember my dad worked for the phone company, and we had someone come in and give us an internet lesson and try to explain to us what like the universe of the World Wide Web was and what different addresses were and how different communities formed. And I mean, it was pretty mind blowing to me. And I know that a lot of people decided to just shun the internet for a long time because they really didn't want to learn this new technology. And I think that there's things we can't really stop from happening. And the best thing to do is to try to learn about them so we can make informed decisions. So from that perspective, I saw a lot of similarities with what I was seeing in the evolution of Web3, the use of NFT technology, blockchain technology, and kind of what I saw happening when the internet was invented. And that was very interesting to me. And secondly, I've been working in cannabis for over 2 decades, and there's something happening in this space that reminded me also of very, very early cannabis, which is that we had a feeling that there was a way to use this for good. Absolutely. But there were also a lot of hurdles. There was a lot of gray area. People didn't really understand. And let's face it, there were a lot of people that were trying to take advantage of the vulnerabilities and the gray area of the marketplace. And so, just like in the early days of cannabis, there was really a need to understand what you should look for in a partnership, what you should look for in an investment. And so having those tools is really important for this world, just as it was important for early cannabis. And then finally, working in a community like cannabis and psychedelic plants, where we're very marginalized and it's very hard for us to build community. And there's a lot of gatekeepers. So there's a lot of people like banks and loan officers and the IRS and Facebook and Instagram that block our ability to do our business to the best of our ability. And so I look at this new technology as a real opportunity to get past some of those hurdles, and for businesses that work with, let's just say, more controversial plants to really have the ability to reach out to their communities and to be a thriving part of commerce. So we'll talk more about what that looks like later on. And that's pretty much why I wanted to do this. Oh, and I'm also having a midlife crisis. I'm 45, so I figure that's what you do, is you just dive into a completely new area and you learn it because it keeps your brain young. So there you go.
I love learning more about your journey and how you have found your way here and how you continue to, pave the way for so many of us in the plant medicine space and also in the technological space. Excited to see all the comments here in the live event, and make sure to ask your questions along the way. I'm sure you will have some as we get started talking about some of these things. So a little background about me and why do I care about this and where have I come from? So I grew up in a tech savvy household. My dad worked for CBS television. He brought me to work on those bring your daughter to work days, and I pushed all the buttons, and he taught me how to use the internet back in like 92. We always had the latest technology that he was showing me. So I feel very much like I've embraced technology in a way that I was very privileged to grow up in a household where we had access to these things. We had AOL early on. I had a website back in like 1995 and had a guest book that lots of people from all over the world wrote in, if anybody ever remembers those things from back in the day. And it took me on a journey to web design and marketing in the website space, as well as partaking in feminist communities and really embracing the liberation of women. And I combine the liberation of women through cannabis. And I also tried my best to combine my efforts to the liberation of women through technology. And sometimes that means everything from I've taught someone to how to double click because I didn't know back in the 90s, to teaching you all and supporting this new technology that we're all learning about right now, Web 3.0, NFTs, the metaverse, all this stuff that you keep hearing, but like it might feel like it's over your head and that it feels very intimidating to even talk about. So I started getting into this last February, when Beeple, if you remember ever seeing this in the New York Times, I'm actually going to paste the link here. This is what started my journey, was the selling of this NFT for $69 million. And I was like, why in the world would there be a digital file that would be sold for $69 million? So it made me super curious. And I decided to go on a deep dive of looking up information on the web, trying to understand NFTs, trying to understand why this was so valuable. And along the way, I found a bunch of articles about 12-year-olds and 18-year-olds who are making millions of dollars on NFTs. And I was like, there's something here that we need to listen to. So I started trading crypto. I started trading Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I created wallets. I have about like 7 wallets at this point. You don't need 7 wallets. I have 7 wallets because because I'm an experimenter, because I like to try things on. So that's really how I got started in this. And I am still every day as curious as I was on the first day and always learning and growing. And I'm really excited to be here with you all as we talk about what these things are and really understand why you should care. I want to bridge this with the why you should care part, because it's not just about the liberation of women through technology, but it's also, this is an important time. As Amanda said, it's kind of like, maybe you said it to me and not today here, but she's told me that this is like the beginning of the internet, like the way it was, you know, and this is the beginning of the Web 3.0 version of the internet. And we'll get into what that means. But this is an opportunity for you to understand why you should care, why this is valuable to you, how you can possibly make money or help your business. And that's why we're here. You know, we want you to understand what we know and willing to do some digging around for the stuff that we don't know, so that you can decide how you want to participate in it, so that you're not feeling left out of, I don't understand this, so I don't care. We want you to have the tools and the knowledge to care enough to know if you should care or not.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, you might learn it and say, you know what, that's not for me. And that's fine. But again, you know, we don't want people to miss out on opportunities because they don't understand the tools. And that's what these are. They're new tools that we now have because of developments in technology. And so not everyone uses every tool in the toolbox, but if you need a tool, it's good to know which one is available to you and which one's the right one. And so that's what we're trying to do for y'all with this.
Yes, yes, indeed. So I guess we could get started with some of our lingo. And
yeah, so today again is very basic. So we know that you've been hearing a lot of things, that there's a lot of kind of confusion about what things actually are versus kind of their pop culture references. And so we really wanted to drill it down because we'll be getting into more of these topics even deeper on future shows.
Beautiful. Okay, so I have my screen back here, and Mariella, if you wouldn't mind just allowing for my screen to be shared again to the main stage, that would be amazing. I need you to take that one extra step. Hi, Jamie. Nice to see you here. Awesome. What's up, Hillary? Hi, Jennifer. Hey, Kira. Just waiting for Mariella to add my screen to the main stage. There we go. Okay, cool. So let's start to get by getting familiar with some crypto lingo. So some of you might know some of the stuff, some of you don't. It's totally fine. And yes, let's start with cryptocurrency. So this is how we defined it. And of course, there's like more that Amanda can probably elaborate on when explaining some of this stuff. But cryptocurrency, aka crypto, is a type of currency that's digital and decentralized. We'll talk about decentralization in a moment. It is created and stored electronically in the blockchain. We will define that too, using encryption techniques to control the creation of monetary units and to verify the transfer of funds. Cryptocurrency can be used to buy and sell things or as a long-term store of value. So, Amanda, do you have another way to explain crypto?
Yeah, so basically, I mean, crypto is tokens, and certain tokens are more stable than others based on how many people own them. When just a few people own something, there's a very volatile, because if a few people decide to sell it, it impacts the price immensely. The more people own a certain cryptocurrency, the more stable it becomes, right? Because if 1,000 people decide to sell it, it doesn't make as big a dent as if only 2,000 people own it and 1,000 people decide to sell it. But of course, just like the stock market, some people are drawn to the volatility because they're looking to do what we would consider to be day trading. So there's definitely certain crypto coins that go up and down in value pretty quickly because they don't have that big of a community that buys them. And so you can try to, speculate what certain crypto coins are going to do based on what kind of value or utility they offer. Some of them are connected to NFT projects or virtual worlds or games. But if you're looking to just kind of dip your feet into crypto as a investment opportunity, then the ones that have the most volume are going to be the ones that are going to be the most stable. And right now that's Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is going to be your most stable cryptocurrency, meaning that it's not going to shoot up 10x overnight, although it's been very volatile. The entire market's been very volatile over the last couple of weeks. But it's more buying a stock that you know is going to increase slowly over time, but you have a pretty good feeling that a year from now it's going to be worth more than it was worth a year ago. So people can make decisions about the types of crypto they want to invest in and what kind of risk they're willing to take. Now, again, we're not giving financial advice, but my own advice that I give myself is never invest more than I'm willing to lose. Because if the market tanks tomorrow and all of that is gone, what does that mean for my future? And so I personally will only invest as much where if it was wiped out, I'd still be okay, be able to pay my bills and my mortgage and all of that good stuff. Other people are less risk adverse and they're looking to do research on what's going to be the next important coin and how high is it going to go. And again, not that different from trading stocks or from trading cannabis stocks in particular, which we all know are also very volatile.
Mm. I'm curious if anybody who is watching this live, if anybody here owns any cryptocurrency, like let us know, do you have Bitcoin? Do you have, or did you have Bitcoin? Do you have Ethereum? Do you have Dogecoin? Shiba Inu, whatever, kind of fun. There's all kinds of fun things that maybe some people haven't even heard about, but there's coins that are out there that people do trade. But the most popular ones are Bitcoin, and then followed by Ethereum. Angelita says Bitcoin. How fun. Okay, let's talk about decentralization, because this is something you're going to hear, if you haven't heard it already, a lot. And really understanding what does it mean is an important part of understanding why this movement is so important. So decentralization is the idea of distributing power away from a central point and removes the gatekeeper aspect. Blockchains are traditionally decentralized because they require the majority approval from all users to operate and make changes rather than a central authority. You also might have heard of DeFi. That means decentralized finance. So, Amanda, do you want to go a little deeper in this piece?
Yeah, just quickly, because I think the gatekeeper, analogy really sums it up. So when you think about a lot of our institutions, especially our financial institutions, there's gatekeepers, right? You want to do payment processing with Square, they have to say you're okay. You want to get a bank account with Wells Fargo, they have to say you're okay. And of course, we know from a business perspective, those of us in our businesses, a lot of times those gatekeepers are not friendly guards at the gate. They're not welcoming our business. And so we still have that problem, of course, across social use as well. People applying for home loans and who gets the loan and who doesn't, and what kind of interest rate are they offered. A lot of this is done through gatekeeping. So the idea of creating almost like a digital gatekeeper through the blockchain that ensures the validity and the authenticity of the transaction, then you don't need someone sitting in an office in Wells Fargo looking at your application and deciding whether or not you're worthy. And so the idea of decentralization is to take that power away from gatekeepers. And just as a good example to this, sex workers are finding cryptocurrency to be very useful because, again, opening up a bank account and doing business is a barrier. So being able to get payment, even Venmo is a gatekeeper, is a really good option. And so for those of us that work in the cannabis space, being able to take payment in crypto is one way to get around Square charging you like $25% service fee per transaction. So I think that's really the key to decentralization.
It's so exciting to me because there's, just a handful of companies that basically own all of our data. Google, Facebook, Twitter, you know what I mean? And this decentralization movement is really exciting because I really do feel like it is putting the power back into people's hands. And if they just understand how to use it, then everybody benefits. Everybody from those smaller communities is able to benefit. So, all right. So let's talk about blockchain. So you probably heard this a lot. I remember lots of people talking about this. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. And I cannot even think about it. Even me as a tech savvy person. So blockchain, we've defined this as a digital form of record keeping and the underlying technology behind cryptocurrencies. A blockchain is the result of sequential blocks that build up on one another, creating a permanent and unchangeable ledger of transactions or other data that is public information.
Yeah. So it's a transparent ledger, right? Everything that's traded on the blockchain, you can see. So if I have a piece of digital art and I transfer it to Lisa, then that is now on the blockchain. So I can't come back later and be like, no, that art's mine. I never sold it to Lisa, because the blockchain has record of that. So thinking about that utility in terms of things like house deeds, right? So how do we prove ownership of a home? Well, if it's connected to the deed and the deed is now a digital token registered on the blockchain, that can show ownership. So again, there's a lot of gatekeepers and businesses that are there just to charge you money for the purposes of vouching that something is yours. So what if we didn't need to do that, right? What if I didn't need, a realtor to vouch that this house is mine, or the county to vouch that this house is mine because it's registered in a digital way?
It's so cool that we're becoming more transparent about things where so much stuff happens under the surface. We had to define block here because you can't talk about blockchain without the block. So a block is a group of data within a blockchain. On cryptocurrency blockchains, blocks are made up of transaction records as users buy or sell coins. Each block can hold only a certain amount of information, and once it reaches that limit, a new block is formed to continue the chain. Okay, the metaverse. The metaverse. It's not Meta, the company now, aka Facebook. But metaverse is a virtual reality space in which users can interact with a computer-generated environment and other users. Do you want to elaborate on this a little bit, Amanda?
Yes. So, obviously Mark Zuckerberg is trying to corner the word metaverse, but it'd be just like back in the 90s, him starting a worldwide web company called the Internet, right? Or having a cannabis dispensary called the Dispensary. The metaverse is not a brand. It's basically a way of describing an immersive environment. And that immersive environment is usually accessed through VR technology, like an Oculus headset. But it can also be 3D, right? It could be something where you're putting glasses on for the purpose of watching something and then taking them off afterwards. And the idea is that you can interact with other people in the metaverse. So instead of having like a chat name where I'm talking to someone through chat on social media, we're actually sitting next to each other in an immersive environment, having a conversation. This could be an actual replica of me, or it could be an avatar that represents me. And so the metaverse is the space in which these things happen. And what is interesting about this is that, we've been kind of relegated to Zoom and great platforms like Hopin, love you Hopin. But there's a limit to it, right? And so if we want to start thinking about, well, gee, we had this conference. I'll give you a great example. I think it was the Drug Policy Alliance conference, or SSDP, one of those great organizations, had to move their conference online during the pandemic. And it was the first year that a delegation from South Africa, I believe, was able to attend because it was online and they were never able to come in person because the cost was too great, and for the whole group to come to the United States. So there is an accessibility aspect to having things be virtual, or at least having a virtual option, but people miss out on a lot when it's this flat screened interface. So if there's an opportunity to have an immersive event where people could come from all over the world without having to pay for airfare or use the environmental impact of flying from one side of the world to the other, and not have to pay for hotel and all of that goes along with environmental impact, but could still get the content in a way that's really exciting and in a way that's really enthralling to them. Like, that is, I see, one of the benefits of having technology like this.
Back in November, I bought myself a VR headset, an Oculus, and I went into Facebook, aka Meta's metaverse. And I walked around there and I was like, oh my God, it was like mind boggling. It was a little crazy because I was immediately talking to people from all over the world. And I think there's a lot to talk about in regards to the metaverse. We'll bring that back around later, but I'm super curious who here might actually have a VR headset or might have already been into a metaverse of some kind.
So I have a VR headset. We'll definitely talk about this more in our metaverse discussion, but I've been working out in the metaverse and absolutely love it. It is like breathe new life into my workouts and it's amazing. And there's dance apps and all. I mean, it's just phenomenal. So we'll definitely talk more about that when we do a metaverse deep dive.
That's awesome. I've done boxing in the metaverse, and that was like good enough for me at that moment. Okay, so we're going to talk about Web 3.0, but let's go back in time to what Web 1.0 and what Web 2.0 were and are. So Web 1.0 is really like the early internet, like static pages, no real interaction, online shopping, like chatting, you know, like AOL, a little bit of that, guest books, all that stuff. Web 2.0 is really social media, online shopping, banking, but a few large companies are really the gatekeepers and your data is their business model. We're trying to get away from that. So Web 3, Amanda, do you want to explain Web 3?
So Web 3 is kind of taking Web 2 and breaking it down. So it's saying, again, instead of having these like 6 big tech companies that own everybody's data and own all of the websites and all of the interactions and gatekeep all the information that are on those platforms, let's break it down so that we have ways to communicate with each other that don't have to go through these large platforms. You're starting to see it in text apps, I think, already. So like WhatsApp was kind of one of the first, but now they're owned by Facebook / Instagram. So I would say like Signal and Telegram and kind of these encrypted message services are kind of getting at that a little bit, right? But the idea behind Web 3.0 is that instead of having to go through Shopify, if I want to sell something on the internet, and now I have to go through Shopify and I have to go through PayPal or Square and I have to go through Squarespace or, you know, so that we can decentralize all of that so that I don't have to rely on those gatekeepers to charge me fees and decide if what I want to do is appropriate. Now, there's a double-edged sword here. With great freedom comes great responsibility. And when we dive deeper into the Web3 conversation, we are going to be talking about what that means for keeping people safe. Where's the line between free speech? Who polices that and ensures safety online? And how do we do that while still allowing people to maintain control and autonomy? And so that's a very interesting question for our times and for society that we'll definitely be diving deeper into.
Let's see here. So I think just a couple more terms and then we'll get into our special guest and also answering some questions. So a wallet. I saw a bunch of you said that you already have some crypto, so you'll be familiar with this. But for those who don't know yet or who are watching later, a wallet is a place to store your cryptocurrency holdings. Many exchanges offer digital wallets. Wallets may be hot, so that means that they're online or software based, or cold, it means they're offline or usually on a device that kind of looks like a USB thing that you hold in your hand. Let's see, I think that might be, oh, just a couple more here. Exchange. This is probably, you might be familiar with Coinbase. That's the most popular one. Right now, I know crypto.com is kind of on the up and up, but it's a digital marketplace where you can buy and sell cryptocurrency. And some of these places also have wallets for different cryptocurrencies. What's your favorite, Amanda?
Well, I trade on Coinbase, but I have a Coinbase and a MetaMask wallet.
Nice. Let us know what wallets you have in the chat. And just a couple of terms on different cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin. This is the first and most valuable cryptocurrency, which launched on January 3rd, 2009. While its value has climbed steadily since then, it's seen wild fluctuations. So in the past months alone, the price of Bitcoin has fluctuated. In fact, when I wrote this, it was at 60,000 and it's been a while since it's been up there. I think it's below 30,000 at this point, but that's pretty, a lot of fluctuation for a coin, but you'll get, it's more than it was when it was created. So
yeah,
you got in early.
It's a long-term investment for most of these, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, we did that one. Let's see. Ethereum. This is the second largest cryptocurrency by trade volume. Ethereum is a crypto network and a software platform that developers can use to create new applications and has an associated currency called Ether. When we talk about NFTs, a lot of the NFT community, and it's branched out in the last year or so. A lot of it is based in the Ethereum network, and people use Ether to trade with NFTs and to buy and sell NFTs.
And we'll talk more about Ethereum and crypto and environmental impact when we dive deeper into that topic.
Yes. Okay.
About-
this is getting a little bit more into wallets and stuff, which we will break into when we get there. So I will stop sharing my screen.
Well, I think the one thing we didn't look at was NFTs.
Oh, did we? Yep, we skipped that one. Hold on. It was the one right after. I'll just, I don't know if Marielle, you can share my screen again, but.
Well, I can just explain it really quickly.
Okay.
So, all right. So because I think people have a lot of questions about what NFTs are, and we're definitely going to dive deeper into that in a future topic. But NFT basically stands for non-fungible token. And what non-fungible token means is that there's only one of it, right? So like the Mona Lisa, if you paint a Mona Lisa, it's not the Mona Lisa, right? It's a derivative of the Mona Lisa, but it's not the actual Mona Lisa. And so a dollar is fungible. If I have a dollar and it was made in 2001 and Lisa has a dollar and it was made in 1981 and hers is kind of, dirty and mine isn't, hers isn't worth $5 and mine's worth $2. They're all worth $1. So all an NFT really means is that there's only one of it and it's a digital token. And that token can represent all kinds of things. It's basically representing ownership, but that could be ownership of the token itself because it's a digital piece of art. It can be music. Like I said, it can be a house deed. It can be a ticket to an event. So, you could have a cannabis event and the ticket is an NFT. And so people buy the NFT. And then when they come to the event, they connect their wallet and that shows that they have the NFT and that's how they enter. And then maybe they're on a mailing list or they get other perks or other things to being part of your community. But again, there isn't this gatekeeper of an SMS messaging service that won't let you reach out to people because you sell cannabis. So, again, it's a way for people to become members of a community or show ownership in something. And so we're going to get way deeper into the utility of NFTs, especially in cannabis.
This is the part that I'm personally the most excited about. It is really, it's really a beautiful thing. It makes artists who are trying to sell their art, try to figure out how to monetize the art or all the free stuff we ever do on the internet, all those posts that you're posting and spending all that time making content for, like how do you make digital files valuable? That's like a really interesting question. And we will be talking more about NFTs specifically in one of our future series. We are doing this throughout the whole summer. And this will be recorded and available to WEIC members, Toketivity members, and members of Sacred Garden community. So,
all right. So I think we're ready to bring up our guest.
Yes.
So yes, Mariella, could you bring Dr. Bowden in, please?
Hello.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Bowden. When I was trying to think of someone that had experience in cannabis and tech, and I was like, well, I know one person for sure because of the work that you've been doing in both fields. And so we're so excited to have you on. I think that you're just such a great example of someone that's embraced both sides and can really speak to how to bring it together and how folks get over the typical barriers of, I'm not a tech person, or, I don't really understand computers, and how we get past that. So, before we jump in, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell folks a little bit about who you are and the amazing work that you do.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amanda, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you, Lisa. It's great to see you again as well. So I'm Dr. Tiffany Bowden. I know that I have probably seen some of you, but if this is my first time connecting with you, it's great to meet you. I'm the founder of the Minority Cannabis Business Association, as well as Comfy Tree Enterprises. And I also presently work at Amazon. I do global diversity initiatives there. I've been in the tech space all my life, really. So similar to Lisa, I think it was kind of one of those situations where, my father was really very much in tech. I got into it because he was building and selling computers, and I was very much into Legos, and he just kind of slipped a computer like, hey, why don't you try this one out? And it was actually very similar to building with Legos. And, then I got into video games, and the rest has kind of been history. But I've been in the tech space pretty much all my life at companies like Groupon, Barefoot Proximity, Apple, Amazon, you name it. So kind of been online. And I've had a parallel career with cannabis and tech.
That's fantastic. And I love the early adoption. And, thank goodness for those dads out there that encourage their daughters to embrace tech. Because I don't think that was that common, at least when I was a kid. And I definitely had a dad that was like, yeah, you should learn this. It's really interesting. Made sure, that we had access to it. So I got to give a shout out to those dads for bringing us into this. So can you tell us a little bit about your work at Amazon? Because I know that, people think of them as one of the big tech. We talked about kind of decentralization. And I think for some folks, it's like, well, because we don't want Amazon, right? We want to be able to just connect with our small local seller and just shoot them some Bitcoin and have them give us our product. So talk a little bit about the work that Amazon's doing on diversity and bringing in women and kind of creating opportunities in tech for those folks.
Yeah, so thank you so much for that. Actually, I kind of consider myself a corporate activist, if you will. So the same ways that I kind of approach my work outside of Amazon is exactly what I do inside of Amazon. And while I've had the privilege of being introduced to tech early on, I find myself working with a lot of folks who have never interacted with tech before, but now they're wanting to change over and switch their careers. I have a lot of teachers that are transitioning out of education and want to come into tech. I have a lot of returning citizens. I have, people that are coming in from IT, folks that are coming in from marketing and advertising, refugees, everyone really. And what we're doing is like they're going through boot camps, and then we're able to place them into software developer roles, which allows them to build and shape all sorts of realities. But I'm seeing people go from below the poverty line to getting some hundreds of thousands of dollars worth in their salaries in one jump. And so it's really empowering for me to be able to actually make a difference in the space and to be able to use the power of Amazon to impact communities in a very direct way. A lot of places are kind of talking about allyship, and a lot of times that ends up in a conversational space. But for me, allyship is about action. And so I just kind of make sure that I make them put their money where their mouth is.
I love corporate activism. I mean, sometimes you got to go into the belly of the beast, right? And you got to hold them accountable. So I appreciate that. That's a lot harder, in my opinion, than just being around everyone that agrees with you and that, you're all waving the same flag. Sometimes you got to be in there making sure people are held accountable. So thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Being in the cannabis space too, I mean, that you have to have a bit of a tough skin, and you have to be able to kind of be in that rough and tumble. And it's not very much different when you're in the tech space, particularly when you're in corporate tech. You have to kind of know when to stand up and fight for the little guy. And so that's what I continue to do in this space.
I love it. I love it.
Where are you at with cryptocurrency? Do you currently trade cryptocurrency? And if so, what are you doing in that space?
Yeah, I'm actually really excited about crypto in the same way that I've seen some people in the chat. I'm excited about it. I know, at least in the cannabis space, we really need something that's going to help us get a hold of the ownership piece. I've seen so many women and minorities losing their businesses and, those kinds of disputes. And so I'm really excited to see how crypto can stabilize that space. So I've been exploring it from that vantage point. I've also been interested in it from a DEI space with the creation of safe space communities, as well as the artistic forms where people are able to forward different kinds of representation, as well as to be able to kind of put certain kinds of aspects of their identity aside and be able to be in a kind of safety of anonymity. So I'm really excited about those kinds of spaces as a DEI practitioner, but also as an entrepreneur in the cannabis space who knows about some of those ugly things that we've experienced in the cannabis industry.
Yes. I think that's actually a great bridge to really talk about like why this is really especially important for women in the BIPOC community to like learn about new technology and embrace it as it becomes available. So why is it, in your opinion, important? And how do we overcome the barriers to inclusion in the tech space?
Yeah, so I think that, one thing to really kind of know is that when you're late to a space, it ends up being a situation where there are certain power dynamics that come into play. And then you end up getting dictated to instead of being one of those people that can actually shape a space. What I'm really excited to see is women and minorities get into this space early on so that they can actually have a chance to be able to set the space up. We've seen this like in the initial .com boom where people were getting locked out. Like all the domains are already taken, domains that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can no longer get that real estate, right? We see that in other spaces as well. It's a time right now where everyone is learning. And from my opinion, if you are navigating the cannabis industry, you can absolutely do the tech space, okay? You need the same skill set. So these are transferable skills. You know how to navigate ambiguity and dive in and figure it out. That's exactly what you need to do within this space as well. So you can definitely do it.
I love that. I think you're absolutely right. And that's actually what I kind of like about it is, the rules haven't been set. The dynamics haven't been decided. Like there's still opportunity, right? There's opportunity to define what is value. Everyone's looking around going, what's value? What's value? And so if we're in there saying this is what value is, there's an opportunity for people to listen because they're not just set in their ways already. So I totally agree with you I mean, the opportunity to come in now and to be part of that conversation, part of what drives the conversation, I think is really, really crucial.
Yeah, and I think that, for those of us who are marginalized in society, what we have to do to really show up in that space is to get out of that conversation of asking what the rules are, where do I fit in, and instead make the rules and build your own table and say, this is how it's going to go. Like we have to actually get more comfortable with standing in our power and setting the pace. So the same kind of journeys that we have to go through as being entrepreneurs in the cannabis space is the same kind of energy that you need to bring into this space too.
And it's not federally illegal. It's so
Right?
funny because I talk to people that are working with NFT technology and kind of in the metaverse, creating spaces. And they're like, yeah, it's so hard because we don't know what to do. And there's really no rules and nobody's. And I'm like, yeah, but what you're doing is federally legal, which
Absolutely.
makes it already way easier
Way
than anything that we deal with in cannabis. I mean, it really is. I mean, you think you're ready. If you're like, oh, I don't know. Believe me, if you have navigated the cannabis space, you are already like at the master's level of navigating kind of the NFT metaverse space. Once you get the basic tools and vocabulary, the idea of navigating something where there really aren't a lot of rules and people are still figuring it out. I mean, we live there every day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. You're spot on, Amanda. And so for those who may be intimidated because they're like, look, I don't know what's going on here. Reground yourself in the fact that nobody knows what's going on here. And we're all creating it simultaneously. So you're right on time.
Yes, you absolutely are right on time. And what's kind of fun is like thinking about what is it you want to know and going on your own deep dive. We're here to support you, and Amanda's actually made some other office hours during the week in case, folks wanted to connect afterwards. We do have some time here. So if you do have questions about any of this stuff, whether or not how far down the line we'll go, we can decide, while we're here. I did see one question that I think Kira said something about tickets. And I know
what would be the benefit of doing that with an event instead of a ticket? So what would be the benefit of having an NFT as your ticket instead of an actual ticket? And I would say there's a couple things. Well, I mean, one is, obviously scalping and making counterfeit tickets and ensuring authenticity of the ticket is one thing. But you can attach things to it that make people excited about your community. So often events are like one and done, and then maybe someone signs up for the newsletter from that event, and then maybe they like open one email afterwards, but the excitement kind of wanes. But if you have a way to keep providing them value to the community through the holding of that NFT, so it could be, here you get into this event, and then in 2 weeks, we're going to drop a special interview that we did with the keynote speaker, but only people that have the NFT get to go on and watch it, right? And so you're constantly keeping people engaged with your community even after the event is over, and you don't have to issue new tickets every time. You could add utility to the NFT in real time. So you decide that, well, everyone in my community is going to get into this event for free. You can just assign that value to the NFT. You don't have to then make a whole campaign about free tickets and, who gets the free ticket and what's the link and where's it being shared. So it really simplifies the act of community engagement, and allows you to kind of like load up that ticket with whatever you want as time goes on. As long as someone holds that NFT, they get whatever value is attached to it. And you can consistently be adding to that value over time.
Gary Vaynerchuk has this thing called V-Friends, VEE Friends, and he's an amazing marketer. If you don't follow him, please do. He's got a lot of great feedback about stuff, and he's definitely very much in the NFT space. But he has his V-Friends NFT project gets you access to his VCon, so his conference about NFTs, and you can only get to VCon if you have an NFT. As I understand it, you can't buy a ticket to VCon. You have to have an NFT. So, and what's interesting too, and again, this is like going on a little bit deeper dive of NFTs. NFTs can increase in value. Maybe at one point they were worth $5 or the equivalent of $5. Tomorrow or a month from now, they could be worth $1,000. Or you'll see in future talks that we're going to be doing, we'll be going through some NFT projects and looking at them and seeing like, why are these things so valuable and talking about them. You probably heard of, I'm thinking of there's like all these different projects, Mutant.
There's the Bored Ape Yacht Club, which
Thank
probably
you.
gotten like the most attention, is kind of piercing through pop culture.
Yes.
Right. So people ask like, well, why does this JPEG of a drawn ape, even if it's super cute, worth $5 million? And the answer is because society decided it was worth $5 million. Why is this liquor cost $500 where this other liquor costs $50? Well, because people who call themselves liquor experts that I trust because they're experts have told me that these are what make a good liquor, and this has all of those things. And so we're constantly looking at ways to ascribe value to things. And so these are digital assets that we're trying to ascribe value to for various reasons. It could be because it gets you into something like a V-Friends conference that's super high end and everyone wants to go to it. It could be because Justin Bieber owns this NFT and therefore you think, oh, it must be really valuable because celebrities are buying it. It could be because it's giving you utility to something you really like. So an example of this is Crypto Cannabis Club, which even though it's a male operated company, they do have some women that are involved, but they have their own cannabis brand. So if you are in California and you love cannabis and you buy a lot of cannabis and your local dispensary carries the Crypto Cannabis Club brand and you buy one of these NFTs for like $150, you get like a 30% discount off that every time you buy that cannabis. So you could be thinking, all right, that's definitely going to be worth more than $150 to me right away because I use a lot of cannabis. Now you also could say, I think this community is going to increase in value too, because not only are they've got all these partners. So not only do I get a discount on this weed, but I get free bubblers and I get a dab rig. So then that NFT, now it's worth $300 instead of $150. So I could decide to sell it and now I make some money off of it, right? And then every time that gets sold, Crypto Cannabis Club makes some money off of it. It's all very interesting. And we're going to go, I know I'm going down the rabbit hole. Here I go.
It's very easy to do because there's a lot to talk about, which is why we made this a series. And why Amanda also made some office hours. And, we have some other tools available. There's a question about Discord in here. Jamie Cooper says, Discord seems to be an important element for building a community around NFTs? Are there other ways to build a community around your project without forcing people to learn a new communication tool like Discord?
That's a great question. And I think you have to be everywhere. If you want to attract everyone, you have to be where everyone is. So like I'm working with a project and we have a Discord server because we know there's a lot of people that are also very into NFT technology that are on Discord, but we don't want to force someone to be on Discord or create a Discord account or learn how to use Discord to take advantage of our product, of our project. So Twitter is also a place where all of a sudden NFT projects and everyone is going, but we also do Instagram. And we also do YouTube, and we also have a website because some people want to go to a website. And if like my mom is telling her friends about my project and they go, where can I learn about it? They're not going to go to Twitter and they're not going to go to Discord, but they're going to go to a website and they'll go to Facebook. So the answer is like any other business, you have to decide who is my target audience and where are they? And right now, if your target audience are people that are very into NFTs or gamers, people that are really into that environment, Discord is a great place to be. So is Reddit, places that are a little bit more subversive. If your audience is, 50-year-old women who are in perimenopause, Facebook, Instagram. So I think just like anything else, you're looking to think about who your audience, and don't assume your audience is only NFT people, but assume if your audience is NFT curious that you're going to have to do some education first before you get them to buy in. So like on our project website, which I'll put it in the chat if anyone wants to check it out, we have a frequently asked questions that's basically like, what is a wallet? What is minting? What is crypto? Because we know that if you're coming to our website, you probably don't know a ton about that. And if you're on our Discord, we're not going to tell you what that is because you probably know what it is. That's my answer.
Yeah. I've thought about that a lot too, because it's like we're all so overwhelmed with all of these tools and inboxes and things we have to maintain. And like, the truth is that if we're talking about NFTs and crypto, specifically, which we are right here, Discord is the go-to place for that community that is already comfortable with those conversations. So, I encourage you to check out the Sacred Garden Discord and see what's going on in there.
You can join by linking to it from our website. So again, if you're like new to Discord and you're like, how do I join Discord? How do I join a server on our website? You can click on join our Discord and it'll take you through the process. So trying to have, portals that make sense for everyone.
Right.
And this is inclusive.
It's a journey, right? It depends on where you're entering. Are you entering or are you thinking about entering because you want to buy NFTs? Like you're going to want to learn what's going on, why you should care about that particular project. If you're going about this because you want to make NFTs, I think it's just good to check out what's going on out there. And check out what Amanda's working on. I have something coming up, which I'm really excited about, which I hope to share a link with you really soon. I could probably share with you the main website, but everything else is like being set up. It's a cannabis normalization project that I'm working on, a company based out of New York, woman-owned company called Thrice. And very excited about it. I'm like the main artist on the project. And we have a couple of other artists in Toketivity that are working on it. And there will be some more. I saw a comment about Crypto Cannabis Club needs female tokers. We agree. And
I told them that. Okay, so I told them they needed female tokers. And what I was told was that they're androgynous.
From whose perspective?
From the men who run Crypto Cannabis Club's perspective. They said that some of them could be men, they could be men or women, which is true. I'm not going to say who's a man or a woman. However, they definitely need to add a little bit of feminine flair to their peeps.
Agreed. But yeah, I mean, this is just the beginning of this conversation here, and the things that are curious to you, like go find things, go look for the woman-owned projects on OpenSea. OpenSea is sort of like what I'm calling like the eBay of NFTs, because it's like this marketplace where you can buy and sell NFTs. I'm curious if anybody has any NFTs, if you've purchased one. I have
Dr.
a couple.
Bodden, do you have any NFTs?
I have a few actually. So I have a Dippy. So it's like a digital hippies. I have a Shroomy. So it
Oh,
contributes to, to mushroom projects and paying forward plant medicine. I have a few. So I'm actually kind of like always like seeking out like new and cool projects. Crypto Chicks has been one that I'm interested in. World of Women is another one I've been interested in. I love, being in spaces that kind of affirm the work that I'm doing. And I'm always like looking for new projects.
awesome. We should check out our project. So we're all about psychedelic plants and supporting the conservation and cultivation of psychedelic plants. So we want to encourage people to grow their own psychedelic plants at home. And so we're about giving people access to seeds and cuttings and education, because we believe that developing a relationship with the plant enhances any plans for future consumption, just like our food. And we believe in the right to plant and anything you want at your house.
That's awesome. I'm going to be checking out your community very soon.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what we want people to do is think of questions. Come to the next show with questions. Feel free to message us with questions because we're all learning together. I mean, that's another great thing is that no one can call themselves an expert. If somebody comes in and they're like, oh, yeah, I'm an expert. I've been doing this for it's probably all of 3 years because this is pretty new. So we are all experts and that we're all learning together and we're all figuring it out. Yes, OpenSea can be a little bit overwhelming. Just go on there and I like to look at like the newest drops, like they'll say like notable drops and I'll be like, all right, what's this? Or I'll look at the different categories. So they have like art, they have music, they have profile pictures, which is like basically people are buying it for clout so they can make their profile picture say, hey, I have a bored ape or I have a doodle or I have a cool cat or like whatever seems to be the hype thing. But I feel like this is kind of waning. And I will talk about this more, but just like cannabis, things move really fast. And what was super hot yesterday is like now yesterday's news. And so I feel like we're moving past the era of like $65 million ape pictures. And now people are asking around NFTs, like, what have you done for me lately? And like, what is this value? And why is this valuable? And I want to know who's behind this project and what they're going to do with it. And so I think we're moving into more of a mindful era, partially because the crypto market is crashing, where people aren't just willing to throw their money at everything. So I think projects are going to have to work a lot harder to build community. But that's where the utility comes in. And that's where we all have the opportunity to think about how can this technology help our businesses grow?
One thing that I do know from my work, not only at Amazon, but as a DEI practitioner, that right now people are really hungry for belonging and community. So for the projects that really stick the landing on that, really the sky's the limit, especially in this post-COVID era. People are really looking for ways to connect, as well as the spaces that are able to reach different types of learning styles. So whether that's through direct communication, visual communication, written communication, being able to tap into all of those things, I think is really important. And if you are kind of on this new journey and trying to explore cryptos, make sure that you're tapping into the learning style that works for you. Don't feel that you don't understand it because, okay, I read this thing and I don't get it. There's probably another space that can help you better understand. So just look for those things.
That was me last year. I was like, okay, so I watched this one video, now what? And then I was like reading Medium, and then I was like going on TikTok. TikTok was so helpful because they're like these short, sweet, educational, focused little things. But what I found really difficult also was like, who do I trust? There's like all these people out there promoting certain projects, and I found it really tough. I did find one woman, Wendy O Crypto, if anybody follows her, I love her, and was so inspiring for like even just making a crypto 101 course that I was like, I need to put something together because I want my friends and family to benefit from this time,
Yeah.
And but yeah, it wasn't in one place. That's why we're talking about it.
That's why we're talking about it. And, Lisa and I made some little videos that we'll be putting out. They're just also short snippets that kind of break up what we did today. What is crypto? What is Web3? And yes, please look for your learning style. There's all kinds of ways to learn about this. And I mean, for me, one great way is to talk about it. I learn by teaching. So, get together in a Zoom or in real life, and for drinks or a joint, and just talk about it with people. And, that's really a great way to learn and to kind of bond over something that we're all learning together. So yes, our next talk is going to be June 20th, which is my birthday. So it's going to be very exciting. And we're going to be at the same time. We're going to have another great guest. We're going to be diving deeper into setting up your wallet. So that's kind of the first step. If you want to use crypto for anything, you have to buy crypto and you got to put it somewhere, and you don't put it in a little physical leather-bound wallet. So we're going to talk about how to set that up. We're going to go step by step, talk about the different wallets that you have options for. How do you buy crypto? What's that process look like? So we hope you join us. And yes, this Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific, I'm going to be hanging out for office hours. So, if something came up for you, if you want to talk about a project idea that you have, how you can utilize this technology for your business, please join us. I'm not sure where that link is. I think everyone that's on this today maybe will be emailed that link. But stay tuned for that. And yes, please check out TiffanyBowden.com to learn more about Dr. Bowden's work, because it's really amazing how she spans these two really interesting worlds, and worlds where there are so much opportunity for women and for marginalized, overlooked, underrepresented, and powerful, fierce communities. All right, you will be emailed the link this week to Thursday office hours. So if you had a friend that wasn't able to join today and you want to bring them along to ask some questions, feel free to join us there. Otherwise, I hope you'll be back with us June 20th. There it is. All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Bowden. We really appreciate having you. Lisa, thank you so much for joining. And thank you, everyone, for joining. And we'll talk to you all again soon.
Yes, talk soon. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.